Everybody remembers The Rock's Hercules the same way. You saw it once, you kind of liked it, and then your brain immediately deleted it. It's one of those movies, but here's the weird thing. The more you actually look at it, the more it feels like this movie was trying to do something way smarter than anyone gave it credit for. Because Hercules isn't really about mythology. It's about what happens when a man becomes his own legend, and then starts to question if any of it's real. Back in 2014, The Rock was in transition. He wasn't quite the unstoppable franchise machine we know now, but he was getting very close. Fast and Furious had revived his career. He was stacking action roles. Hollywood clearly saw him as the guy. And Hercules? This was supposed to be his defining mythological epic, his gladiator, his 300, his this is what I do now moment. But instead of going bigger, they went weirder. They stripped the myth down, and what you're left with is a movie that feels like an action film on the surface. But underneath, it's basically a story about propaganda. Let's start with the biggest twist this movie pulls. Hercules might not actually be a demigod. Yeah, that's the movie. Instead of leaning into gods, lightning, and destiny, this version asks, what if every legend you've heard was exaggerated? An Nemean lion? Maybe just a big, aggressive animal. The Hydra? Could have been multiple enemies made into one story. The 12 labors? Maybe real, maybe embellished, maybe completely fabricated. And the movie never fully gives you a clear answer. That ambiguity is the entire point. Because the story isn't trying to prove Hercules is a god, it's trying to show how easy it is to make someone look like one. This is where things get really interesting. Hercules isn't just a warrior, he's a business. He travels with the team. They take jobs, they win battles, and then they tell the story. But not the real version, a better version. The version that spreads. And that's where Lois comes in, because Lois is basically the movie's secret main character. He's the storyteller, the guy who turns, we fought some dudes in a forest, into Hercules slayed a mythical beast sent by the gods. And the movie makes it very clear. The legend only exists because someone is controlling the narrative, which, if you think about it, is insanely modern. This is basically a movie about myth building, branding, and perception. It's ancient Greece meets social media strategy. Let's talk about The Rock, because this is not the version of him people are used to. He's not playing the charming, eyebrow-raising, I know I'm cool guy. There's no Fast and Furious swagger here, no Jumanji humor. This Hercules is tired, conflicted, quiet, and honestly a little broken. He's carrying this reputation that he didn't fully create, but now has to live up to. And you can feel that weight in the performance. There's this constant tension of, I don't know if I'm actually who they think I am. And The Rock plays that surprisingly straight. No link to the audience, no safety net of humor, just a guy stuck inside his own myth. It's subtle, but it works. If Hercules is the face, the team is the engine. And this is where the movie genuinely shines. Each member of the group feels distinct and purposeful. You have the prophet who calmly predicts his own death and is weirdly okay with it. You got the fast-talking thief who brings the energy. Then you got the silent, almost feral warrior who feels like pure violence in human form. And then you got the most competent fighter in the group and easily one of the coolest characters. And again, the storyteller. What makes this dynamic work is that they all buy into the myth, not because it's true, because it's useful. They understand that fear wins battles before they even start. So they feed the legend, they build it, they weaponize it, and that adds a layer to every interaction they have with other characters. Now let's get into the action, because at the end of the day, this is still a Rock movie. The action here is grounded, heavy, impact-driven, you feel every hit. It's not flashy in a fantasy way. It's more like mud, metal bodies colliding, and that works in the movie's favor, because if they had gone full CGI spectacle, it would have completely undermined the maybe this is all exaggerated angle. Standout moments include the opening lion sequence, which immediately sets up the truth versus story idea, the training montage where farmers slowly become soldiers, and the large-scale battle sequences which feel chaotic but controlled. It's not elite tier action filmmaking, but it's consistent. And more importantly, it fits the tone. Here's the core question the movie is asking. Does the truth actually matter if the legend works? Think about that, because throughout the film, people don't follow Hercules because they verified his story. They follow him because they believe it, and belief is enough. That's powerful and kind of dangerous, because it suggests that identity isn't about facts, it's about perception. And Hercules himself is caught in the middle of that. He's benefiting from the myth, but also being crushed by it. About halfway through the movie, there's a shift, and it forces Hercules to confront the possibility that the stories aren't protecting him anymore, they're trapping him. And this is where the movie almost becomes something deeper. You start to see what this could have been if it fully committed. A character study about a man dismantling his own legend. But instead, the movie pulls back just enough to stay in action movie territory, which is both understandable and a little frustrating. Because, yeah, this movie has problems. The villains are forgettable. Not just weak, but forgettable. You're not going to remember their names. You're not going to remember their motivations. You barely remember their presence. And that's a huge issue, because a story about myth needs a strong opposing force, something that challenges the legend directly. And this movie just doesn't have that. Second problem, doesn't go far enough. It introduces these great ideas, but never fully explores them. It hints at complexity, then simplifies things before they get too uncomfortable. And you can feel that restraint the entire time. There's a more interesting version of Hercules hiding inside this movie, one where you never find out what's real. The entire story is told through conflicting accounts. The team is actively manipulating events to maintain the myth, and Hercules slowly realizes he might just be a real strong guy who got lucky. That version, that's a classic, but the movie we got sits somewhere in the middle. Not fully myth, not fully grounded drama, just in between. So why did this movie disappear? Why did people forget it? So there's two big reasons. Marketing. The movie was sold as a big mythological epic, but it's not that. So audiences walked in expecting one thing and got something else. And then you also had timing. 2014 was stacked, and Hercules didn't have the visual identity or spectacle to stand out. It wasn't bad enough to be talked about and not great enough to stick. So it just faded. But watching it now, it hits differently because we've seen what The Rock usually does, and this stands out. It's one of the few times he plays uncertainty, doubt, internal conflict, and honesty. He should do more of that because it adds dimension that a lot of his later roles don't have. Hercules is not a masterpiece, but it is a movie with ideas, and that alone makes it worth revisiting. It's about storytelling, reputation, identity, and how easily the line between truth and myth can disappear. And for a movie that most people forgot, that's kind of impressive. So yeah, Hercules might not be the epic fantasy people wanted, but it's a much smarter movie than people remember. And honestly, this came out today with a slightly darker tone and a stronger script, might actually hit way harder. But what do you think? Should Hercules have gone full mythological spectacle, or is the grounded legend building angle what makes it interesting? Let me know in the comments, and if you want more deep dives into other films like this, subscribe, because we got a lot more coming, and I will see you in the next one.